Namaste. Welcome back to the Force Niyama podcast, a place where conversations on the timeless teachings of Yogacharya BKS Iyengar with his most senior direct disciples unfold. My name is Katerina. I'm an Iyengar yoga student and a host of this podcast. Today, I'm very excited to share my conversation with Corine Biria. Corine Biria is among the most senior direct disciples of BKS Iyengar and a highly regarded yoga teacher from Paris. Corin embarked on her yoga journey in 1981 at the age of 20, and from the very beginning it was clear for her that this was her path. Shortly after starting her yoga practice, she met her husband, Faeq Biria, one of the most devout students of BKS Iyengar and an internationally recognized yoga teacher. In 1983, after 2 years of intensive yoga practice, Corin came to Pune for the first time to establish herself more firmly on the path of yoga and to study directly from Guruji. This was a very transformative experience for her, which formed a strong foundation for her yoga practice to this day. In this interview, Corin is reflecting on her journey in yoga, her initial steps on this path, her first intensive course in Pune led by Guruji, her experience studying directly from him, and why she felt protected and full of confidence while being guided by her guru, BKS Iyengar. What does it truly mean to be humble? Why could the wrong perception, Bhranti Darshana, be a serious obstacle to your progress on the path of yoga? What does it mean to have a guru? And what is his purpose in his students' lives? These questions and more will be addressed in this episode with Corine Biria. I hope this interview will be insightful and beneficial for you and would serve you as an inspiration in your yoga practice. Now, let me welcome Corine Biria. How did your journey with yoga begin? And what was the nature of your practice, of yoga practice in the beginning and now? And how did yoga personally help you?
Mhm. So I started yoga, I was 20 years old. I was a student at the university, and I was not knowing anything about yoga. My family was not at all in this field. And it happens that I had a very, very good friend at that time, and we were studying together, and she was trying many, many different disciplines. And one day she came to me and she said, "You have to do yoga." And at that time I was doing karate.
Oh, wow.
And I
What
said,
were you studying?
Shotokan. Shotokan.
Mm-hmm.
And I told her, and it was already a good sign, I feel, that at that time I told her, Marion, I cannot mix the disciplines, whether I do one or the other. And she started to harass me, absolutely to harass me. And came one point where I decided to go to the class because I was fed up of her harassment. And the thing is, I stayed to yoga, and after a few months, she left yoga.
Wow.
It was a
What
very,
was the
very,
reason? What was the reason for her?
because she was not steady. She was going to different disciplines. She was having this nature. She couldn't stay to one place.
Hmm.
Nevertheless, I went, it was in Shivananda Yoga School. And there, after a few weeks, I met my husband, who was a teacher there. And funnily, he was teaching Iyengar yoga at the Shivananda Yoga Center. And he just arrived from his tour in India after 2 years. And he just met his guru, Guruji. And he was having energy to lift the mountains, to tell you. So strong he was, so vigorous, and so full of inspiration. But the Shivananda Yoga Center told him, you can't stay in this place and teach another method, which is right. You can't, you have to be straightforward. You go to Shivananda, you teach Shivananda, you go to Iyengar, you teach Iyengar. So we left together, Shivananda, and he was having a room in the 8th arrondissement of Paris. And there I started to be a regular student, started to help him and teach there. And well, that's how we started. And you know, he sent me to India after 2 years, about 2 years of, I was 22 when I met Guruji. So during these 2 years, the practice was extremely difficult, extremely strong, but it was like a cleansing from one life to another. And so it was difficult. It was necessary for sure, for sure. I mean, this is how I feel this passage of my life. And there was a bit of cleansing, a huge practice. I was doing daily 108 sun salutation every day. I lost about 10 kgs and I was able to eat a lot at the same time. And it was clear from the very beginning that that was my path. That was my path for sure. And so obviously, the way I started yoga and how I do yoga now is very different. But I feel that at the very beginning, this vigor, this enthusiasm, this inspiration are required if you will go far in the path of yoga.
Which year was it when you started, and which year was it when you met Guruji?
I met my husband, it was in April 81. And I met Guruji in January 83. And I arrived a very, very auspicious day. The day I arrived, it was the Institute Day in January 23rd. I reached there after all the trip. That time I had no taxi to go to Pune. I took the train, third class, which was wonderful because the people there were so kind. It was my first meeting in India. And so I reached Pune, go straight away to this celebration. And I took it as an auspicious beginning, I would say.
What was your first impression when you met Guruji for the first time?
I mean, the wonderful thing that I got the chance to have was that my husband was a Bhaktan. And the Guru for him was meaning everything. So we were not only prepared physically to do the asanas, we were also prepared spiritually to meet the Guru. So the way we reached that place was I feel the right way, that the respect was already there, how I would say, the devotion was already there before I met him. And when I met him, it was on the ground floor of the institute. At that time, there was a Pandu. And Pandu saw me, how I was frightened to go into the institute. I was so fearful because the energy of Guruji was spreading everywhere, and it was a vibrating energy which was frightening. So vibrated it was, really, really. So finally, Pandu took me inside. And at that time, Guruji was going down from the stairs, from the hall. And I met him from the back. And the first feeling I got, I say, I'm like Moses in front of God. I cannot see Guruji straight away from front because there will be too much light, as Moses couldn't see God because there would be too much light and it would kill him. And it was exactly my feeling when I met Guruji first time, that I was exactly like Moses in front of God. But I felt from his back very, very good vibrations, I would say, very good vibrations. That was my first feeling. Then I got the chance that I was involved at the intensive for beginners, the only one, I believe, that he ran. And I remember we had to settle in the room. It was my first time, so obviously we were fearful, frightened. And all of a sudden, there was an assistant in the back who pushed me very, very strongly, exactly at the front of Guruji, at the stage level, exactly at the front, like she was punishing me to be exactly at the front of Guruji. I mean, I couldn't be closer than this place where I was. And when you know this energy that he was having, these vibrations that he was spreading, this place was not very comfortable at the very beginning. But he managed quite well so that I didn't get the fear to be at that place very, very soon, very, very soon. And what happened one day during this extraordinary intensive, why I say extraordinary, because everything is printed in my mind the way he was teaching. And in fact, he was teaching the beginners that we were, but he was also teaching all the assistants around who got their own intensive the month before, and they were the seniors at that time. So the seniors were learning how to teach beginners with us beginners in front of Guruji. So, I mean, I measured already at that time the chance we were having. And in front of us for demonstration, we had Prashant, Gita, and Shah. Besides, we were having the whole family. It was very, very, very special. So I remember once I was watching that everybody who could come on the platform were supposed to be corrected. Every time there was something wrong, so Guruji was showing his pose, obviously it was another thing, and the pupil. And I remember in my mind, I say, I wouldn't like to be on the platform. Everybody is doing wrongly. And so it gave me this behavior within. Obviously, Guruji, who could see everything, one good day, not straight away, after a few days, called me on the platform for Virabhadrasana free. So when I reached the platform, I felt I was done. And funnily, he did the opposite. I was in Virabhadrasana free for I don't know how long, but a very long time. And he was praising my pose. I say, see how Guruji was so full of sensitivity to know what I was thinking to show me that my thinking, my thought was wrong, not every time. And the funny thing is that, I mean, he was so bright. I was in Virabhadrasana 3. If I was to listen what he was telling, I would fall. So I couldn't hear him because I had to stay in the pose. So that is the master. It's a point of pedagogy which is beyond our understanding. On one way, he can see what you think. He can show you that what you think is not always right. He is praising you in a pose where you cannot hear, because if you hear, you fall. Mm-hmm. You fall physically, but you also fall at a spiritual level, because when you are praised, you think of yourself in another way that you should feel about yourself and think about yourself. So, I mean, the level of pedagogy of Guruji, at that moment, I could grip. So this intensive was extraordinary. I got the first directions of pranayama and all the first directions about every family of poses. And I say every time when I have a doubt, my thoughts go to this intensive where everything was so clear. So it's a foundation. It's a full foundation for me, which will never leave me, for sure.
Were you always staying at the same spot where that person pushed you to, or during the intensive course?
One day, I don't know what happened. One day, I came in the room and I felt uncomfortable to be there. Mm. One day it happened, and Guruji could see that, and he got the sensitivity to push me to the second level behind. I never said anything, but he knew, because he can see the mind of the people. Mm-hmm. He could. So the dialogue with Guruji was a silent dialogue. It was not open mouth dialogue with him. So what I was thinking, he was doing in one way or another according to our thoughts. So strong he was. Mm.
You know, Usha mentions very often that in front of Guruji, you could never lie. He sees through, and by looking into your eyes, but probably by looking at the body language. What do you think the signs that he could grasp that made him realize that this is what he has to do with this person?
No, I think he had a siddhi. It was a siddhi. His practice was so strong, he had this siddhi to watch the mind of the people without any difficulty. I remember something very funny. I was with one of my very good Indian friends. We were in the library. Guruji was already old. Huh? He was, as ever, on his desk reading or writing. And my friend, very, 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 very slowly, softly, was telling me something extremely funny. Extremely funny. And the problem is not to burst in laugh in front of the Guru. It is not correct. So we were laughing very, very gently. And I could make out that Guruji was also laughing very much. That with some unknown ears, he could hear her story. He could hear her story, so we were whispering together. So then, again, I saw that he had the capacity to hear, the capacity to watch our mind without any difficulty. And I think it was his CDs.
Did you ever ask him about that quality of his?
No, because for him, the CDs are not to be shown up. It is there as a proof that you are on the right path in your practice, but it is not to show off. So it never came in my mind to ask him anything about it. It was just the proof that his practice was correct.
Tell me a little more about this time during the intensive, like since the practice was so, intensive and was very demanding. How did your day look like? Were you able to make any notes of what Guruji has taught you, or some reflections of yours during that time, or you just decided to soak all the
So,
information that you could and let it be?
during this intensive, I made notes. I had full time because we were doing only that. There was nothing else to do. So there was time for me to take notes, and I have very, very old exercises book, which I never open, to tell you frankly. And but Guruji was not very keen about having notes. He was not very keen. He didn't want us to work with our analytical mind. He wanted us to work with our back brain. And so from there, where all the impressions, the samskaras are there, and to let these samskaras at the right time come up to surface when we needed to remember something about it. He wanted us to develop that. So he was not keen about these notes. And sometimes he was getting wild when we were writing. At some point, I was just writing in the library. I remember very lately, I was not taking any note during the class, but once I was in the library, I started to put notes. And even there, Guruji was not happy. He didn't want that. He didn't want that. So I tried to go to it and to have trust in this back brain full of these samskaras, full of memories, right memories, I think. These right memories, they need to come up to surface. And so you have to develop it through your practice.
So no notes, but
I have notes, but very rarely I open them. Very, they are like Rachand says, they are biting the dust.
I often feel like making notes after some very insightful classes, but I agree that it's very rare when I go to these notes and try to recall. Like usually the memory is in the body or somewhere in the body, not in the notes. So Guruji's guidance broadly was not to take notes. How about, since the library was there, did he encourage you to, after the practice, read more books, explore a certain topic? What was his guidance on that point?
Well, at the very beginning, I mean, for the first years, I decided to start again my studies in French literature. And Guruji really was pushing me to finish this part of studies. I was doing my master at that time, and it took me little time to do it because I was very busy with yoga. So the time for study was less. So I had to take more time to adjust both yoga and studies. But Guruji, for him, it was very important that we should have a diploma, certificate in studies, whatever studies you are doing, to have status. I feel that he suffered himself very much not having done any study because all the reasons that he explained in his books. So for his family and for us close students, it was very important that we wouldn't do his mistake. his mistake. I mean, this is the mistake of life. I can't say it is his mistake.
Just circumstances.
Circumstances. So I was, for a few years, I was working on the desk in the library, and he was very happy about it.
Mm.
And afterwards, we could help him for his writing. We were correcting, and I mean, it was a good time for us to find some reason to help him in some way, recorrecting something, rereading something. It was nice. And slowly, we came to read any book in the library afterwards. It was the end of it for me. Problem is, once I got my daughter, my time at the institute became shorter. At the beginning, I could stay 3 months, I could stay 6 months. So at that time, it was good because I could be helpful. But when you stay 1 month, how much you can do? Not so much. So whatever was I was able to do for helping, for the one thing or the other, I was helping. And sometimes it was too short. I couldn't help. For example, my husband's and our very good friend Pachi, they were helping him for all his edition of books. And they were doing that a lot. I would have dreamt to be into the team to help them, and I'm sure I could have helped them to some extent, but that time was not given to me. I had to be there for school, and once you are a mother, the priority, unfortunately, have to change, and it was the case for me.
So these books were his books in English or the books that were about to be translated in French?
No. When it was in India, it was in English. Everything was written in English. My English was average. Even Guruji never said that I was having good English. He was fed up with my English. And you know how he was, for example, at a point, one of my students in France, she was having a very high level of she was at a college, I mean, not college in the sense of medium school, but high college in France. And she was teaching Sanskrit.
Mm-hmm.
And this one day, she gave me a full set of Sanskrit studies to learn how to write the Devanagari. So 1 year, I came with my file and to learn how to write Devanagari. Even this Guruji was not happy. He didn't want me to waste time with that. He wanted me to learn about yoga. He didn't want me to go to the language, Sanskrit writing, and he didn't want that either. Quite interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Really quite interesting to see.
He didn't want it for you, or he didn't want it to any students to, to waste time on Sanskrit? What do you think?
I can't say for others. I speak about me. He was a guide to me. He was a guru to me. So he was guiding me where to put my feet and where not to put my feet. So he agreed that I do a master because he wanted me to have a status, but he didn't want me to waste, sorry for this term, but in his language, I would say, he didn't want me to waste my time with disciplines out of yoga. I had to be fully concentrated on the subject and only on the subject.
The subject included the practice of asana or something extra like reading Patanjali Yoga Sutras, reading books which are about yoga, Bhagavad Gita, and so on and so forth. What was his guidance?
Guruji, as a guru, taught us everything. First, life. From conception to death, he was teaching us everything. Marriage, children, death, the obstacle that we were having during our life, obviously. Every step, Guruji was here, every step. So any struggle we were facing, my husband or myself, I speak of us, he was here. And he was guiding us. I remember once I came to India, and 1 year, my Visa card was used in a wrong manner by a shop. And one good day, my husband, who was in France, called me and said, "Have you bought any jewel?" So I say, "No, I have not bought any jewel." And I'm not very fond of jewels, to tell you frankly. So then we could understand that my Visa card has been stolen. And at that time, you cannot believe how Guruji helped me. He sent me to the police commissioner with Pandu, with all his books, yoga books. And then I had to go to MG Road. And MG Road from Institute is not a joke. You have to go, come back. At that time, I had my daughter, very small. She was 3 years old. So I was coming back. And this for weeks together. It lengthened. And at the end, I was exhausted because I came for yoga. I spent my time in police commissioner. My daughter of 3 years old without her father. I mean, it was a absolutely hectic situation in Pune. And I was not despaired, but I was absolutely exhausted. And finally, Guruji at that time shook me in a very gentle way, I would say, very, very gentle way, shook me to tell me, you have to face, you have to go through it, you have to. And in such a way that, why you complain about yourself? The situation is this situation. He didn't tell me in this word, but that was the whole story. You go ahead, and one day it finished. So the day it finished, everything went well, and no problem. And it was a lesson, just to give you a sample. But the whole life, I mean, the 40 years I've been spending with Guruji, the whole life was like that. Every struggle, every question, every wondering, he was there. Whenever we were doing things that he thought it was not right to do it, he was there also to tell us and to guide us. The purpose for the Guru's purpose is not to say you are in Yama or you are not in Yama. He wanted that whatever we were doing would be right samskaras to be in the path of yoga. If we have wrong samskaras, we will go away from the path of yoga. And he didn't want us to waste our time with wrong behavior. What is wrong? We can open the subject. We had to stay inside the right path to be closer to the purpose of our life. And he was there to protect us. So the protection was sometimes to shout at us when he was not happy the way we were going on in our life, and sometimes to push us in such a way that we progress in our path. It was a full protection. So the people were maybe saying, oh, he's shouting at her, he's shouting at him. But it is a sight from outside. What was happening between he and us? For example, I speak of us, but that happened to other Shishyas, that we knew why he was shouting, that he was right to shout, to bring us back to the right reality. We knew that it was straight, it was right, and it was not made to hurt us. It was not made of wrong feelings. The feelings were absolutely right. And so this is the Guru work. The Guru work is that. So we were never in pain when he was shouting at us. We were in pain of ourselves and saying where we are. We are so far from Guruji's level. We could make out that his level and our level are so different. But at the same time, we were full of confidence because we were in his arms.
So beautiful what you're saying. At that moment when, like the reflection that you are sharing right now, did it feel like that in the moment when Guruji was shouting at you or giving you the guidance which you did not feel that aligned with what you really wanted to do? Like, how did you deal with these contradictory thoughts when Guruji was giving you one guidance, instruction, no matter about what, about the yoga practice, about life, but you had this contradictory thought that it is not how you want to go?
The thing is, it is up to your state of mind from the ground level. For me, it was clear that Guruji was right because I had the full confidence, devotion to him, and also to have been close to him for all these years. I could see that he was always right when he was telling things. So when there is a contradictory feeling, the mistake was not Guruji, it was mine. Always. I always agreed with my fault. So at that moment, I was wondering about myself. That he says that, I have to think about it. I have to think. And often in my daily life, these things come to surface. He said that to me at that time. And I think I recall it and I think about it. I think about it till now. Till now.
Can you give an example of lesson or guidance that he has given you that you still recall?
No, once I remember I was in the first rope. It was just the beginning of the class. First rope. And I don't remember exactly how he told, but he said in a very, very delicate manner that I was not humble, something like that. I was not humble. He didn't say in this manner, but he said in a very delicate manner. And at that time, my mind was not at all, I think of my mind that I don't remember to have been proud to do this, but most probably I was. Then I thought about it many times. What does it mean to be humble? It is not because you say, I am humble, that you are humble. Generally, it is opposite. When somebody say, oh, I'm very humble, we know that this person is not humble. But what does it mean in the vocabulary of Guruji to be humble? According to my understanding, to be humble for Guruji means to be in a devotional state, to be in a bhakti state. If you have this feeling, there is no room for pride of any manner. So I remember a few times when I came, I would say dry, because the life of the daily life here was not always easy life. So you come to India dry. because you had to face your own problems in life. And when you come dry, you are not humble. You are not humble.
What do you mean by dry?
Opposite of humbleness. Your mind is full, your mind is busy, your mind is definitely not in a devotional state, definitely. Because you are full of all the obstacles you had to follow, to bear in your daily life. And that was also a reason why I was coming regularly to India, very regularly, because once I was there, first Guruji could see what is the situation. A bit shaking. Come back. You have forgotten the path. I bring you back to the subject, not only because you do 2 hours of pranayama, 2 hours of asana, 1 hour of pranayama, but also your mind also should be also here in a proper state. So we had sometimes to be shaken to get back our right mind, and we were looking for it. We were looking for it because we knew it was the right thing to do. Otherwise, you are carried out with all the work, all the discipline, all the obstacles of the daily life, and you forget why you go to yoga.
Mm-hmm.
To be on this path is really, we are all, without any exception, all, we are on a razor edge. We can fall anytime. And the worst is now Guruji is gone. Who will tell you that you have fallen? Who? Nobody. Nobody. Guruji was there to say you are about to fall, but I will keep you out of the pit. That was our chance. So when Guruji left, for me, it was the morning, I couldn't finish my morning. It was very difficult because he was there in any case. If we were falling, he was there. Now, if I fall, I will fall. I will fall. Nobody will be there. So that means at this level, we have become an adult to see that we can fall anytime. But the problem is that what is frightening me is that we think of ourselves something which is wrong, and nobody but life maybe will tell you. What we call in Sanskrit the Bhranti Darshana. We live Bhranti Darshana. We think that we are something that we are not. And Guruji was a guru. When we were, like I told you, I was on the rope, thinking I was doing my first rope, and Guruji said there was no humility. I was not aware. At that moment, I tell you, I was not aware at all. I was fully in Bhranti Darshana at that moment. Then he shook me, and then I understand, but what is humbleness? Where I am, why my mind is like, he doesn't want that. Now, nobody. So this Bhranti Darshana, I can see, yes, everybody says you can see your inner guru. Of course, it is nice to say, it is very fancy words to say inner guru. But is it your inner guru, or is it your mind? Or is it your ego? How you will define at our level when it is ego, mind, or inner guru? So the morning was very difficult for that.
Guruji, when he was starting his journey with yoga, there was also barely any guru that could guide him and could tell him all this. So somehow he cultivated the inner guru inside himself.
But don't forget, he was a genius. Even Gita, once she was telling a man like Guruji come to earth every 500 years. he was a genius. I mean, whatever he was touching, it was something else. His practice was something else. Everything was something else. He was an example. His strength to accept what he was and to develop the right thing. I mean, who has this strength? It is not imaginable, Katerina, not imaginable, his strength. His vigor to maintain where he should be at the right direction. Frankly speaking, I'm not sure I have seen so many people in his with this mind.
You just have listened to the first part of my conversation with Corine Biria. The second part will be coming shortly. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope this podcast will be of a great support for you in your own svadhyaya, in your own study and discovery of the self. See you in the next episode.